right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of the great millstone that taught us the truth. And salutations to the hopeful elect that's around the four corners of the globe. And the elect begins with 144,000. Yahawah, who the world ignorantly calls God and Jehovah. BAHASHAM is in the name. YAHAWASHI, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. The Rakakwadash, the Holy Spirit. I'm the brother I will lump you with the gym at Chicago camp out here in Chicago. Come back at you, brothers and sisters in the household of faith of the Hopeful Right Select with another lesson. And Lord willing, I hope this lesson be edifying through the spirit and power. YAHAWASHI YAHAWASHI. Once again, I hope this lesson is edifying. I'm going to just simply entitle this lesson, best believe we're going to eat, man. And now you have to truly believe that, man, because this lesson stems on, how the IUIC is selling bug out bags, man. Which just basically shows you that a lot of these individuals that's calling themselves Israelites, man, especially these other guys of these other camps, man, selling, selling breakdowns, selling, different things like that. They have no faith, man. You know, especially now with the IUIC now selling bug out bags, man. These guys have no faith that Yahweh Shemal Shah is going to feed them in the time of famine, man. Hey, but best believe that we're going to eat, man. You know, and this is a small account, that just happened to me maybe like I say a year and a half ago, man. I prayed to Yahweh Shemal Shah, ultimately because I didn't have no money, credit cards was depleted, car was down. And I ultimately, didn't have no money, like I said, didn't have no food. And I ultimately prayed to Yahweh Shemal Shah, Baba Shah, Yahweh Shemal Shah, feed me. I was on my way to the train. There was this what appears to be a Moabite lady, ultimately giving me a bag of snacks and $3, man. And then ultimately you gotta understand this, man. We're still in the green tree, man. So best believe if how about Shemal Shah is coming, through for us in the green tree, how much more in the dry, man, when all hell breaking loose, when ultimately when the store shelves are ultimately is being depleted, man, how much more so then, man? So we have to have this in the forefront of our mind that we're going to eat, man. The servants of Yahweh Shemal Shah are going to eat, is going to eat. But just to jump straight into it, man, this is the book of Isaiah 65. And I'm gonna start at verse 12. And it reads, therefore will I number you to the sword, and ye shall all bow down to the slaughter, because when I called, ye did not answer. When I spake, ye did not hear, but did evil before mine eyes, and did choose that wherein I delighted not. And then ultimately, right, man, 2/3 of our people is going to be cut off by slaughter, man. You read Zechariah the 12th chapter, it says what? Two parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the third shall be left therein, man. You know? But ultimately, what? The third is going to be delivered, man. The 144,000 and the 1/3, man, of the nation of Israel, man. The Lord is going to have provision set for his elect, and the Lord is going to deliver his elect in the time of trouble, in the time of famine, man. But for you 2/3, man, hey, you faithless Israelites, you're going to be destroyed, man. And it reads, verse 13, therefore thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, my servant shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servant shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servant shall rejoice, but ye shall be ashamed. Right? My servant shall eat, man. The ones that's standing 10 toes down for Yahweh Shemal Shah, and the ones that's keeping the faith, man. Yahweh Shemal Shah is going to make sure his hopeful right select ultimately gives the provisions that they need, man. I like the account. I just ultimately, talked about in the beginning of this lesson, man. I prayed to Yahweh Shemal Shah in less than 3 minutes, man. And the Lord hooked me up with the things that I needed, man. The different things, I needed at that moment, man. So how much more so, when we're ultimately what? In the dry, man. We're in the green tree right now. How much more so when we're in the dry, man? When that tree begins to wither, man. How much more so is the Lord going to come through for his hope for us select, man, and feed his elect? But I'm going to read that again. Verse 13, Isaiah 65:13 says, therefore thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, my servant shall eat, but ye shall be hungry. Behold, my servant shall drink, but ye shall be thirsty. Behold, my servant shall rejoice, but she shall be ashamed. Right? Yahweh Shemal Shah is going to come through for his elect, man. We don't have to, buy a bug out bag, to ultimately to sustain us, man. Yahweh Shemal Shah is going to sustain us, man, hey, with the things that we need, hey, in the time of famine, man. Verse 14, it says, behold, my servant shall sing with joy of heart, but ye shall cry for sorrow of heart, and shall howl for vexation of spirit. So a lot of these individuals, especially 2/3 of our people, is going to be in a pitiful case. that ultimately didn't rely on Yahawah Shemal Shah for the one of all things, but relied on the system, they're going to be in a pitiful case, man. The ones of our people that ultimately rely on Egypt, man, and we know that Egypt is what? America is that spiritual Egypt, man. You have 2/3 of our people relying on this system. It's going to bite them in the ass, man. But us that ultimately lean upon Yahawah Shemal Shah, let's actually grab this real quick. I'm going to come back to this Isaiah 65. I want to grab this real quick that just came to mind. Bear with me for a second. This is the book of Isaiah 10 and verse 20. And it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel and such as are escaped of the house of Jacob shall no more again stay upon him that smote them, but shall stay upon the Lord Yahweh, the Holy One of Israel in truth. And exactly right, man. The elect. It's not going to depend on Esau's system because what's happening right now, man? Ultimately what Esau Edom is trying to ease into that digital system, man, by ultimately what getting everybody RFID microchip, man, which is the mark of the beast according to Revelation 13 and 16. So if you ultimately want to eat in this man's society, he's going to ultimately what? Tell you to get that chip. And ultimately what? The hopeful right select is going to lean upon Yahawah Shemal Shah in a time of, when this whole thing gets implemented, man. In a time of famine. Yahawah Shemal Shah, ultimately what? The hopeful right select will lean upon Yahawah Shemal Shah, for the one of all things, man. It says, verse 21, it says, the remnant shall return, even the remnant of Jacob, unto the mighty Yahweh. And exactly right, man. The hopeful right select will ultimately what? Call upon Yahawah Shemal Shah, in a time of need, man. But let's go back to this Isaiah 65 and finish it out. Isaiah 65 and 14. Behold, my servant shall sing for joy of heart, but ye shall cry for sorrow of heart, and shall howl for vexation of spirit. So a lot of our people are going to be in pitiful case, man. Those that's ultimately of our people that's faithless, that's ultimately, having faith other than Yahawah Shemal Shah, man. And it says, verse 15, they say, ye shall, that was pretty much the point, but let's grab this real quick, man. And we ultimately, like I said, we ultimately have to believe that, man, that the Lord is going to come through for us, feed us, in a time of trouble, in a time of tribulation, man. That Yahawah Shemal Shah is ultimately going to come through for us, man. And he is. He's coming for, through us right now, man. As this way, as we're in the green tree right now. How much more so when that tree begins to wither, man, and ultimately America becomes that dystopian society, man. This is the book of Sirach 2 and verse 10. It says, look at the generations of old and see, did ever any trust in the Lord and was confounded? Or did any abide in his fear and was forsaken? On whom did he ever despise that called upon him? Because what's that? I believe it's Romans 15 and 4 says things are written aforetime, it's written for our learning, man. Hey, so we ultimately go back to these different said accounts, how the Lord ultimately fed our forefathers during a time of famine, how the Lord delivered our forefathers during a time of major tribulation, man. How much more so us, as we always like to say, man, in the worst time in human history, the worst time to ever to come upon the planet Earth, man. How much more so the end of the age? Because the Lord already has the provision set up for us, his elect right now, man. The Lord is going to know what we need in the exact time that we need it, man. And read that again. Salakia. Sirach 2 and 10, it says, look at the generations of old and said, did ever any trust in the Lord and was confounded, or did any abide in his fear and was forsaken? On whom did he ever despise that called upon him? Right, and exactly right, man. Look at the generations of old. And you look at our forefathers, like Elijah, that was ultimately fed during the time, of the famines, man. He was fed with the ravens. And then ultimately what the Lord had, set up that the widow ultimately fed him, And these are the times, that we're coming into, man. The Lord is going to take care of us. Let me actually grab this and grab this in Joel real quick. Bear with me. I believe it's Joel, the 5th chapter. Yep, this is the book of Joel 5. And I'm gonna start at verse 19. He shall deliver thee in 6 troubles, yea, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee. Is in a reason and famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. right? In famine, the Lord is going to redeem us, man. Because like I mentioned before, the Lord ultimately has what? This my alarm. Because ultimately, what the Lord has different provisions set up for us, ultimately in the time of famine, man. The Lord is going to deliver us in the time of famine, man. You know, just look at our forefather Elijah, man. How the Lord fed him with ravens, and ultimately, what had the widow ultimately feed him in the end, man. You know, it says, verse 20 says, "In famine he shall redeem thee from death, and in war from the power of the sword. Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt thou be afraid of destruction when it cometh. At destruction and famine thou shalt laugh, neither shalt thou be afraid of the beasts of the earth." Right. So we're gonna laugh at these things, man. So how much you think we're gonna be in good case and we're gonna laugh at these things, man? So we're gonna be overly straight, man. We're gonna be overly good, man. You know? Hey, so it's ultimately what? We don't have anything to worry about, knowing that YAHAWASHI is gonna feed and look out for us, man. Going back to the beginning of the lesson, I gave my testimony how the Lord fed me instantly, man. So how much more so when a society collapse, you know, when there is no food out here, man, how much more so is the Lord gonna look out for us then, man? Let me actually grab this in I believe it's second Ezra's. Let's see, second Ezra's. Because this is what's coming to the planet Earth, man. It's a particular point I'm trying to get. Bear with me for a second. Um, Let me see. This is not exactly what I'm looking for, but this is the book of Second Ezra 16 and verse 18, because this is what's coming to the wicked, of our people and the rest of these people, man. This is the book of Second Ezra 16, and I'm gonna start at verse 17. It says, woe is me, who would deliver me in those days? And it reads, the beginning of sorrows and great mournings, the beginning of famine and great death, the beginning of wars, and the power shall stand in fear, the beginning of evils. What shall I do when these evils shall come? Behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent for scourges for amendment, right? So the Lord is sending these different plagues out here, as a as an amendment, just basically telling our people to get right. But we know 2/3 of our people is not going to get right, and they're going to be caught by these said things. But for all these things that shall not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges, it says, behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case, and even then shall evils grow upon earth, sore famine and great confusion. It says, for many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. And right, that's ultimately what's going to come to the wicked of our people, man. You know, the ones of our people, and that was Second Ezra 16. And the ones of our people, that's refusing to get right is ultimately going to be taken, by these said things, man. You know? But grab one more. Let's grab that Matthews. Hey, because the Lord already has it set up, man. Hey, that we're gonna be good, man. Grab one more. This is the book of Matthews 6. And let's see. This is the book of Matthew 6 and verse 31. And it reads, therefore take no thought, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what withal shall we be clothed? For after all these things do the Gentiles seek, right? The Israelite foreigners. For your heavenly Father knoweth that uh ye have need of all these things. So yeah, how about Shemiah Shah know we needs to eat at the end of the day, man? And the Lord already, like I mentioned before, the Lord already has these said provisions set up for us, man, to ultimately to eat at the end of the day, man. As I read in Isaiah 65, my servant shall eat, man. You know? Hey, and that's the point, man. We're gonna eat at the end of the day. You ultimately have to believe that, man. You know? But just something quick I wanted to get into, man. Lord willing, I hope this lesson was edifying. It's a lot about the background noise. Also, Lord willing, I hope this lesson was edifying. When anybody giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, Makakwadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of the great millstone, tells the truth. And salutations to the hopeful elect that's around the four corners of the globe. Lord willing, I hope this lesson was edifying. Till next time, call me Yasharallah, Shalom, and the Bible Ball. Until next time, Lord willing.